If you're a fan of One Punch Man, this is a theory that you definitely can't skip. Today, we're diving into one of the most mind-blowing aspects of One Punch Man, and trust us, this one's absolutely bizarre. We're talking about why even God himself, the actual cosmic deity lurking in the shadows of the series, seems absolutely terrified of our favorite bald hero, Saitama. Now, before we get into the juicy stuff, let's just say that this goes way deeper than you might think. This isn't just about Saitama being strong, it's about what he represents, what he's done, and what he's capable of becoming. Before we get into this explanation, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The man who shattered divine law. Let's start with the most fundamental reason why God should be afraid of Saitama. You see, in the One Punch Man universe, there's this concept called the limiter that was first explained by Dr. Genus back in chapter 89. Essentially, God himself designed every single living creature with a built-in restriction to their growth. Think of it like a safety mechanism hardwired into your DNA. This limiter exists to prevent beings from gaining so much power that they lose their minds and become mindless, raging monsters. It's God's way of maintaining order in the universe, keeping everything balanced and under control. But Saitama broke his limiter and completely shattered it into oblivion. Saitama removed his limiter while keeping his humanity intact, which, according to Dr. Genus, should be literally impossible. Imagine being God, having created this foolproof system that's worked for billions of years across countless dimensions and realities, and then some random guy from an insignificant planet just breaks it by doing push-ups and running every day. What makes this even more terrifying from God's perspective is what removing that limiter actually means. It means Saitama has no upper limit to his power whatsoever. His strength is literally limitless and continues growing exponentially, especially when he experiences intense emotions. Saitama has essentially become an anomaly that exists outside of God's divine authority, and that makes him unpredictable, uncontrollable, and ultimately unstoppable. The exponential growth that defies comprehension. During Saitama's fight with Cosmic Fear Garu, we witnessed something absolutely unprecedented in the series. The manga literally showed us a graph demonstrating how Saitama's power was growing exponentially throughout the battle. His power was multiplying at such an insane rate that even Garu, who had been given a massive portion of God's own power, couldn't keep up. Let me put that into perspective for you. Garu, empowered by God, could copy any technique and match anyone's power level instantly. The dude could literally produce gamma-ray bursts and cosmic phenomena that rival the Big Bang in terms of raw energy output. But even with all that godly power, Garu realized mid-fight that Saitama was growing stronger with every single punch he threw. The narrator explicitly states that Saitama's abilities were rising exponentially due to his intense emotions after Genos' apparent death. Some calculations from the community suggest that if Saitama maintained that growth rate, he could reach universal levels of power in less than a microsecond of serious fighting. What's even crazier is that this isn't a temporary power-up or some special transformation. This is just how Saitama works now. From God's perspective, Saitama is like a cosmic ticking time bomb that gets exponentially more dangerous with each passing moment. The fist that turned against God. During the battle with Cosmic Fear Garu, God himself referred to Saitama as the abominable fist that turned against God. Now, that's a very specific phrase, and it tells us something crucial. It doesn't say a fist against God or the fist opposing God. It specifically says turned against God, which implies that at some point, Saitama might have been aligned with God in some way, or at least God thought he could control him. Some fans theorize that God might have actually reached out to Saitama during his training period and made him an offer of power, just like he did with Homeless Emperor and Garu. But here's the kicker. If that's true, Saitama either rejected God completely or somehow took the power without accepting God's control, effectively stealing from a deity and going rogue. That would explain why God seems to avoid direct confrontation with Saitama despite clearly being aware of him. What makes God even more wary is that Saitama represents a genuine threat to his entire plan. God has been working for who knows how long to break through the dimensional seal that keeps him trapped. He's been slowly increasing his presence in the human dimension, creating monsters, granting powers, and building towards some kind of ultimate goal. But Saitama, just by existing and growing stronger, is becoming the one obstacle that God cannot overcome through his usual methods. The power that breaks reality itself. Let's talk about the absolutely insane abilities Saitama demonstrated during the Garu fight that should have God seriously concerned. First up, we've got the infamous Sirius sneeze that blew away literally 90% of Jupiter's gaseous layer, exposing the planet's core. The real game changer was when Saitama demonstrated the ability to manipulate causality and travel through time. Garu, using knowledge granted by God, taught Saitama a technique that involved manipulating particles and antiparticles to reverse causality. Saitama not only learned this technique instantly by watching it once, he actually performed it better than Garu could. What did this result in? Saitama literally punched through time itself. He traveled backward from the future and delivered a punch that knocked out Garu before the fight ever reached its climax. This created what's called a reversal of causality, where the effect happened before the cause. Saitama can now potentially hit you before he even throws the punch. He can change timeline events. He can manipulate the very fabric of space-time just by copying a technique once. From God's perspective, this has to be absolutely terrifying. God exists in another dimension and manipulates reality through his cubes and vessels. His entire power system is based on being able to control and influence things from outside normal space-time, but Saitama has demonstrated that he can transcend dimensional barriers, manipulate causality, and affect outcomes across different timelines. That means God can't just hide in another dimension anymore. If Saitama can punch through time, who's to say he can't punch through dimensions? The Unwitting Summoner. According to several interpretations of the manga, Saitama might actually be summoning God to their dimension without even realizing it. During his fight with Garu, when the two of them were throwing around cosmic-level attacks and breaking through Jupiter's moon, they were literally tearing rifts in the dimensional seal that keeps God contained. The manga explicitly shows God's eye watching Saitama from the moon during these events. Blast mentions in chapter 173 that God's activities in the human dimension have increased rapidly in recent times, and the panel where he says this specifically shows Saitama's back, making it clear that Saitama is the cause of God's increased interest. Now, some might think that this means God wants to attack Saitama, but we think it's more complicated than that. God is being drawn to Saitama because Saitama represents both an enormous threat and potentially the only being in existence that could serve as a perfect vessel for God's power. A threat beyond calculation. What really sets Saitama apart from every other threat God has encountered is his complete unpredictability. God has been around for presumably eons, granting powers, creating monsters, influencing civilizations. He's seen countless beings try to challenge him, and he's presumably defeated or corrupted all of them. But Saitama doesn't follow any pattern that God can recognize or predict. First of all, Saitama has no ambition, no desire for power, no grand plan. He just wants to be a hero for fun and maybe catch a good sale at the supermarket. How do you manipulate someone who doesn't want anything you can offer? God's entire modus operandi is based on tempting people with power and exploiting their desires, but Saitama has no desires that God can exploit. Secondly, Saitama doesn't understand his own power. He genuinely believes he got strong from doing basic exercises. He has no idea that he broke a divine law or that he's defying the fundamental rules of the universe. This ignorance actually makes him more dangerous because he has no self-imposed limits. Finally, there's the matter of Saitama's growth potential. Even if God were somehow stronger than current Saitama, which is already debatable, Saitama's exponential growth means that any prolonged confrontation would inevitably result in Saitama surpassing God. It's not a question of if Saitama will become stronger than God, it's a question of when. The perfect immunity. Saitama appears to be naturally immune to God's influence. We've seen God try to tempt multiple characters throughout the series. Homeless Emperor, Psychos, Garu, even trying to trick Tatsumaki by appearing as Blast. But when Saitama, Flashy Flash, and the monster Oculette touched one of God's cubes, God offered them power to see if they were worthy vessels. And while we don't see Saitama's full reaction, he clearly didn't accept anything. He just moved on like it was no big deal. This is huge because it means God's primary weapon, the ability to corrupt and control through granting power, doesn't work on Saitama. God can't turn him into a vessel, he can't manipulate him, he can't even seem to get Saitama to take him seriously, and without that ability to corrupt, God has to face Saitama directly, which brings us back to the problem of Saitama's limitless growth. In any direct confrontation, Saitama would just keep getting stronger until he wins. There's also the fact that Saitama has already defeated someone wielding God's power. Cosmic Fear Garu was described as having God-tier abilities, capable of manipulating cosmic forces and understanding the flow of all energy in the universe, and Saitama beat the tar out of him. The final confrontation. Now, we know what you're thinking. Isn't God supposed to be the final boss? Doesn't that mean God should be stronger? Well, yes, but also no. See, the entire point of One Punch Man as a series is subverting expectations. The creator, One, specifically said he started with the premise of having a protagonist already at peak strength from the beginning. The story isn't about Saitama growing to defeat the final boss, it's about what happens when someone who's already essentially unbeatable faces increasingly desperate opponents. God is probably the final antagonist of the series, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's stronger than Saitama. It more likely means that he's the only one clever enough to recognize that fighting Saitama directly would be suicide. That's why God operates through proxies, vessels, and indirect manipulation. He's trying every possible strategy to deal with Saitama without actually fighting him face to face. Marvelous verdict! A wild theory with enough merit. So why is God afraid of Saitama? Because Saitama represents everything God cannot control, cannot predict, and cannot defeat. He's a being who broke God's fundamental law and became something that exists outside divine authority. He grows exponentially stronger with each passing moment, can manipulate reality itself, and is completely immune to corruption or manipulation. He's destroyed planets with a sneeze, punched through time, and defeated opponents wielding God's own power without breaking a sweat. But perhaps most importantly, Saitama is terrifying because he doesn't even realize how dangerous he is. He's not trying to challenge God, he's not seeking power or revenge, he's just an unstoppable force with no limits, no ambition, and no reason to stop growing stronger. God has never encountered anything quite like Saitama. When that final confrontation comes, and trust us, it's coming based on how the manga is building things up, our money's on the bald guy. Because at the end of the day, Saitama has already proven that even divine authority can't stand up to someone who truly broke free from all limits. God might be a cosmic entity that exists beyond dimensions, but Saitama is the guy who said, okay, and kept throwing punches anyway. And in the One Punch Man universe, that's always been enough. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of this theory, and also share your views on how excited you are for it to happen. While you're down there, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.